just giving you a little glimpse inside the development of this weird counterculture. Is this a new phenomenon? Spoiler, it's not. It is an old phenomenon that is taking on a new, more aggressive and more demented shape. So a study was done in 2023 researching the radicalization process for incels. Incel message boards sometimes feature fantasies of rape and murder and musings about what it would be like to assault one's sister or family member out of desperation. The researchers analyzed more than 2,700 pages of incel posts from 2019, documenting their what begins as solidarity and empathizing with each other, all the way to hostile radicalism. More than 80% of the posts analyzed talked about women and what the incels would do to them, a lot of it regarding violence, according to one of the researchers. They often express the belief that white men are victims of minorities and feminists, and claim that those who think otherwise have been duped, of course. Researchers at the study are calling for closer tracking of incels by the FBI and legislation to combat the subculture as a growing domestic terrorist threat. Another article from 2022 analyzed the incel movement and found an 8 times higher amount of degrading and violent language toward women from 2016 to 2022. They noticed an increasing overlap between incel followers and the far right and extreme right-wing ideology. Now, there's a lot of jokes on the internet about incels, everybody's making fun of them, but it's important to not dumb down what this is. Incels are clearly a danger to women when they go down this trajectory far enough. And this is why the researchers are looking into it, because they're trying to pick these people off of these internet forums before they inevitably go out on a shooting spree. I've seen a lot of people labeled incels who are not really incels. So this could be, we want to understand the difference between someone who is on this track to becoming literally violent in public. What exactly is the mechanism that is driving these people, and what separates them from other people, right? So let's define what is an incel. This is not merely someone who is single and wishes that they weren't single. That's not enough to qualify as an incel. So once again, we're going to do this from a Jungian perspective. So an incel is someone who aggressively rejects femininity while embodying it to an absurd degree. But this is not normal femininity incels embody. It is deeply distorted and practically unrecognizable. Now the problem is, because, as we always say on this channel, we don't have a lot of spiritual grounding and we don't have a spiritual foundation in this culture. So we don't have any framework for understanding what is happening with people. We only see what's happening on the surface. The problem these incels are having is nothing new. It is well documented in Jungian psychology that men who are struggling with their anima or feminine side will often have dreams, for example, their wives being very shitty people. And the guy will wake up and go to his analyst and say, "Why am I dreaming this? My wife is not a shitty person. She's not like this. This is not her personality. Why did I have this dream?" And the analyst tells him, well, this is an expression of your own repressed femininity. Basically, it's not working out well. It's not going well. This part of you needs attention, and through the dream, it is calling out for that attention. You'll also see this in the more alpha male characters where they're so obsessed with this idea of women seeking attention. Women are always seeking attention, right?
Why male attention is like crack to women. All of these like videos you see online where it's like the girl's like being followed around, getting harassed by all these guys. She's just using you for free attention, and she will never admit that, but it's true.
Women like attention. Women get a lot of attention. You need to make sure that your attention has a higher value than other attention. So I recently got verified on Instagram, for example.
It's so funny because the reason they keep sensing that there's this feminine presence that wants attention is because it's inside of them. And so they just assume all of the women around me are just seeking attention. And they will purposefully seek out women who are a little bit less mature or a lot less mature, who are more likely to demonstrate being more attention seeking in a more childish way. Now, with the deeply injured incel, we don't just see symptoms of classic anima possession. That would be too easy for the level of crazy we have going on here. We also see symptoms identical to animus possession in women. So a good way to conceptualize this and understand these people is that incels, anima, their repressed feminine, has its own animus that is spitting out aggressive logic and facts at people, just like the animus does when it's unconscious.
What actually happens when people are getting divorced isn't these types of scenarios. It's like literally initiated, you'll probably know the stat, between 2/3 and 80% of the time by women, and the plurality of that reason is they feel unfulfilled. They want a new chapter in their life. It's like the eat, pray, love phenomenon. That should be outlawed.
So there's them, the person that they are. There's the anima, which they're violently at war with within themselves. And then on top of it, they're so obsessed with this idea that they are rational, critical thinking beings that they have this animus-like force coming out of them too that's very obsessed with data and logic and facts. A lot of them will even like talk about research studies, but they'll do it in such a dysfunctional way where they're obviously not being rational at all. We have to understand that the unconscious and the anima, these things are life force. So they're incredibly creative energies. Just because it's very repressed and unhealthy and rejected doesn't mean it stops developing. It develops in its own weird, terrifying way, and it keeps getting weirder and weirder and more dysfunctional. Now, the interesting thing that nobody on this earth will tell you about incels is the big secret, which is that they are the flip side of the alpha males. So with the alpha male characters, they are radically embracing unhealthy masculinity, right? That's obvious. While rejecting femininity, yes, that's obvious. Now, incels, on the other hand, are generally more steeped in negative emotion. They're probably more feminine on average compared to the alpha males, and that's what got them into this mess to begin with, is that they weren't dealing with that deep emotional unconscious baggage that they have, and thus they have a lot of self-esteem issues for not naturally being as masculine. This is why a lot of these guys really claim to hate women, and they do a great job of convincing us all that they hate women, but the whole thing is just a projection. It's a demonstration of their inner world. They're fighting with this force within themselves that they've so aggressively outlawed, and they have so much shame about it, and they have so much hatred toward it, that they actually think it is women outside of them that they hate, but the women outside of them aren't even involved with them. They're not even involved with any women, right? So it's obviously just them sitting in a room, probably on their computer, doing all of this inside of their own selves, inside their own mind. It is a cultural phenomenon that is coming from the pressure against men to reject all that is feminine within them. Because they are doing this, they have a lot of trouble relating to women who are feminine. Spoiler alert. So this is why they can't get into a relationship with women, because they'd be getting this constant feedback from a woman, from someone who is better at wielding this femininity, and they'd be getting feedback about everything that they're doing wrong. Of course, their ego wouldn't be able to handle it. So they have to make it about evil, evil women. And the narrative of evil women is very embraced historically. So it's a safe place for them to latch on to. Oh yes, the evil women, of course. So in the context of incels are down here, right? They're in this very unhealthy feminine place. Cowardice, despair, low value on the lives of others. We know that because in the extreme, they're killing people. Blame, they're blaming everything on women, right? Isolation, obviously, that's their main issue. Now, the obvious solution to this problem is to move up this scale, right? And to get back into or develop for the first time a healthy feminine expression, to have a healthy feminine side. These guys are likely to argue, well, I already tried that, right? They do this whole like soliloquy about how they were always the nice guys, right? Always the nice guys. Well, what is this? It means they didn't quite actually develop healthy feminine. What they're talking about is being doormats to women. And again, this is because they didn't really get up here to develop. They kind of stopped short, and that's why they were, quote, nice guys. Now, nice guys are still manipulating, right? Which is still unhealthy feminine, but they don't even know they're doing it. They're just trying to get things. And so they're being nice guys, not because they're actually nice, but because it's a manipulation strategy, right? So they plummet all the way back down to here, and they're back down in this deep, dark, feminine cavern. What they're doing is they're peeking up here, and they're seeing who is it right here. It's these alpha guys. They're bullying, they're mean, they have this unhealthy masculine thing going on, right? However, they are starting to develop some masculinity. And so these incel guys are jealous of the alpha guys. That's why they're so fixated on them. And they're always talking about how they get all the women. Now, in reality, like we said in the video, they don't get all the women. They get their equal opposite. If the incels want to go this route to healing, what they'll actually have to do is pass the alphas, right? Because the alphas are not that developed. Pass that and get up into this healthy masculine category, where you can then actually be a match to a healthy feminine woman. Dear God, why is this so hard? Perhaps the craziest part of this whole thing is that what is desirable to women and what leads to long-term relationships, marriage, satisfaction with women is anima integration in men. Basically, what makes a man attractive? Having his feminine integrated. That is what it is. I've never met a man who was healthy in his masculinity and also very integrated with his anima. So his feminine side was very healthy, very integrated, very obvious. I've never met one of these men who couldn't meet a woman or who didn't have girlfriends. There's a whole movement around men being too feminine. That is not what's happening. That's complete bullshit, misunderstanding. Same old shit from the conservative side of things, right? What is happening that they are referring to? They're referring to this issue much more common in left-wing circles. It's not that these men are becoming feminine and it's hurting them. What's happening is that men could have issues with masculinity. You have these men who are just kind of like sitting on the couch. They have like not a masculine bone in their body. You know, they're not doing any of their responsibilities. That is what conservatives are always complaining about. And they'll say, see, that's what happens when men become feminine. No, it isn't. When men become balanced in their femininity, one thing happens. they attract women. And I'm so tired of nobody talking about this or like knowing about it. So like I said, if you want to attract a woman who is worth attracting, that's key. A woman who is worth attracting, who is mature and developed enough to know valuable versus invaluable men, what you will do as a man is you will develop your masculinity, and you will make sure that your femininity, your anima, your unconscious side is healthy, and you're doing the best you can with that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you're nurturing it, you're fostering it. The big barrier men face, as I've talked about, is the fact that society has deeply aggressively conditioned them to not develop their feminine, and that it's shameful and evil and bad. It makes them stupid. It sucks because you're conditioned directly against doing the thing that would help you have a good relationship with a woman. So the argument among all these incels, they all say that the top 5% or top 1% of alpha males are attracting all of the women. They're attracting all the valuable women, and there's nothing that the incel can do. It's the top 5%. Again, this is absolute nonsense. What you are talking about with these alpha males is they are attracting the most shallow of women and the least animus developed of women. So when women don't develop their animus, or their masculine discernment and their logic and their intelligence, what happens is they're stupid. So they will fall for anything, and they will fall first for the alpha male. They're a perfect match. They can be shallow together and never develop together. Really what these incels are doing, they're not understanding that their problem is that they don't value developed women. They don't value them. They think they're subpar, they're too ugly, right? Because like we don't have like injections, and like too fat. That's another big one incels are always talking about. Too fat, too ugly. You know, like you're a 5, you needed to be at least a 9.5. This is all delusion, absolute delusion. And none of us who are normal in healthy, happy relationships are living by these rules, obviously. So that's all I want to say about this. There is so much misinformation around this topic. It is shocking. It is shocking. And I think those of us who know better are just kind of quietly like, no. Like in the background, you know, having more successful lives, having more successful relationships, even if there is conflict and problems in the relationship, there is a capability, there's a capacity to move through them. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, check out my new Substack. It's called Undomesticated, and I will see you in the next video.